When I got to Namibia, I inherited a portfolio, an initiative that my predecessor had developed over 5 or more years. And I think that's important, to have as much dialogue with your predecessor as is possible. We're not obliged to follow their advice or their direction, but they can point you into some very important areas. And in some preliminary conversations, one thing that came up was the fact that the northern part of Namibia was still, in some sense, underserved, and that there were real opportunities to do programming in that region, not only because of the population size in the north, but also the potential for having a demonstration effect elsewhere in the country. It made sense to try and focus it in a geographic area. There were very few vibrant civil society organizations in the north. It struck me that the university would be a good entry point for a number of reasons. So I went out to the site that the university was then negotiating to purchase to become the future campus of this new initiative of the University of Namibia in the north. And then they said, well, would you like to stay? The university official said, would you like to stay a little longer and come to a meeting of the Northern Advisory Committee on this campus? And I said, yes, by all means, I'd very much like that. And in fact, that was the thing I was most interested in seeing. So we drove, down the road a piece, and we got to a building, a public building, and was ushered in. And there were about, 15 or 20 people. And what I was struck by immediately was the sort of the energy in the room, the buzz. I was like, wow, people are talking. They're very, very animated. What I witnessed over the next, whatever it was, 2 or 2.5 hours was this incredible interest, commitment, focus on this project, on the creation, the establishment of a university in the north.
Well, let me tell you that we were deprived from education overall. Our children have to travel to other regions. Therefore, we decide we must do something here in the north in terms of university to come here.
But you can tell there was this tremendous expectation, and that people were really willing to give time to make this thing work. Moreover, that they expected the university to listen to them. I was looking for some key institutions and key partners, and that one possibility might be to do work with the university in the establishment of this campus. But I had some misgivings. Should I stick to NGOs or solely to community-based organizations? Was this the way to go about programming on civil society, strengthening civil society? And I actually really benefited from some comments my colleague based in Johannesburg made. He was very encouraging. We felt that if we could work with communities to become much more actively engaged, and we could support that process, there was a better chance of government taking them seriously, of them coming up with solutions and ideas and interesting approaches that hadn't been apparent up until that time. It was a brief conversation he and I had, but it seemed to validate what my instincts were telling me, and that's helpful. I made 2 or 3 more visits to the north and met with more people, talking to people, and I became convinced that this was the way to begin this initiative in the north. What I've observed through my conversations, what I think is still missing in this process right now, is a more formal planning function. And it's my view that it would be useful, if you agree and the community agrees, to have a more formal participatory planning process that would bring them together and then hire people, design curricula, special programs that the community had identified as really essential to their needs. I came to the States and I arranged with one of my colleagues who had been one of the prime movers in the RCCI, the Rural Community College Initiative, to go on a very, very brief get acquainted tour of RCCI and MDC, which has a sterling reputation in the United States. And we spent a day and overnight with the folks at Danville, in Southside, Virginia, as it's called, which is home of the Danville Community College, which is one of the, I think, 24 community colleges that make up this initiative. And it was just an eye-opener for me. And just hearing them articulate the problems, the challenges, seeing what they've done with their community college, how the community is so deeply, deeply involved in it now, I mean, it was really spectacular. It was really very, very exciting. Again, it reinforced this idea that some of the problems that I was hearing articulated in northern Namibia were comparable to problems that Danville Community College was trying to address. So it convinced me that it was at least worth a try. Now what I had to do was go back to Namibia and sort of sell the folks. I gave them a lot of information, I described it to them, they raised the very legitimate concerns about, well, they might be doing wonderful work in the United States, but what does that have to do with Namibia? I mean, they were the right questions to be asking. But I think what I finally said is, look, there's no strings attached. Let's just see what we see. Let's take a leap of faith here. And there's no expectation that you need to do anything further with any of these people, that you need to work with them, that we are not asking you to adapt their approach. Maybe it'll just be an opportunity to think through the problems, and it really is. It was a chance for folks from the University of Namibia and people from the northern community to be together in close quarters for 2 weeks. We sometimes joke about it, but there is this bonding function that's really critical. Which is both seeing things, asking questions, having fun, enduring long plane rides, train rides, bus rides. It was about 6 folks came over.
New Mexico is similar to Namibia in the physical terms because it's mountainous, it's dry. Namibia is the same. It's also the same that you have different kinds of people trying to live together. So we dry green vegetables in order to keep it for a long time. And they were doing the same thing, but they modernized it. So they packaging it. It just shows you that you can take your tradition and develop it so that it can also benefit the community.